What's up? Heads.
You didn't have anything there. You said you were going to come up with
Blanked.
something.
Okay,
And you came up,
boy.
I want to clearly say here, Spencer told me to stop making jokes about the clap, and so my mind was blank when we started. So I'm just gonna put that out there. All right.
There's literally nothing else. There's literally nothing else to talk about except like really boring bullshit that the audience can't hear. That's the problem with doing podcasts.
You know what? Hey guys, if you want to know what happens behind the scenes, if you want the full unedited recording of us actually counting down and clapping, let us know in the comments below.
Okay.
Right.
Whatever.
Well,
Really boring bullshit the audience can't hear. Is that the Patreon exclusive for this week?
That's
exactly. Yeah, it's a top secret. After the sad head, you got the sad leg.
And then it's like Hangman, if you ever played that. You have to spell out a whole word, and then somebody dies.
Oh, right, like the movie.
Yeah.
Hangman.
Pretty sus, bro.
Exactly.
That's right. Well, welcome one and all to Style and Direction, a menswear podcast without the stuffiness. I am your host, Ethan M. Wong.
I'm Spencer Audie.
And
Not DSO because
No.
should I
because
introduce
that's my
myself
name,
or
that's
you
my
want
just
to?
Instagram handle.
we'll get into you.
Later.
We'll get to you. In a
Okay,
minute.
I'll go back to my corner. Do your thing, boys.
Yeah, go back. Get over there. Go sit with Dan
Sorry,
Harmon over there. Yeah. I'm just kidding. It's been a long time since we've had a guest. Well, not really. We had Young Chomsky on.
How long ago was that? I don't remember any. Everything has been a blur for the last almost a year.
That was in July.
Okay, that seems like an eternity ago.
That's eternity.
From here to eternity.
Is there a reference there, or are you just saying the word?
It's an intriguing word.
You're just hoping that I riff based on what you said.
That's right. It's the ultimate improv where there is no lead-in. You're just saying words,
And then you hope the other person actually figures it out. There you go.
I
They don't teach you that at UCB.
They don't.
Franklin or Sunset.
They do teach you that at Second City.
Yeah, Second City is famed for that word
Yeah.
association.
That's right. I do want to say that in my head it did trigger reference because so after I graduated high school, I was in college, as people are.
Okay.
And my brother was in high school, and he had to for like this math class. They were like, you had to make like a fun video using a concept. It didn't even have to be serious. It's just like a little fun project to do, extra credit. And I think he did limits or something like that, and it was tied to like decoding something, but decoding, it was a James Bond parody, and so the title of that was Forever Until Eternity, which is a hilarious Bond parody title because it's also
if it is about limits, why didn't he do the movie Limitless with Bradley Cooper?
yeah. I should have told him just to redo that movie.
Yeah, it's like just do the whole thing over again. Then he could do In Time just for the hell of it. Those movies are kind of like connected in my mind. I don't know if they like came out at the same time or if it's like.
Is
also...
In Time the one about like the time traveler who has like
No, it's not a time. It's your time is money, literally, and how much money you have directly correlates to how much time you have left on this earth.
See, I'm thinking of the time traveler's wife.
What is? I don't really know what that one's about.
I don't know. All I know is that I think it's got Rachel McAdams in it, which Notebook. I don't know. I have no idea. I've never even seen any of these movies before. But what I have seen is my brother's movie Forever Till Eternity, which is again limit because it's like, as the limit approaches infinity. It's a whole math thing.
Yeah.
I wrote a score for it. It's great. Very James Bond because as some of you know, it is my one of my small. It's not really a goal. I guess it's a dream. To score a James Bond film, and I've taken every opportunity to score as many Bond parodies that have come into my life as if they were a serious Bond film.
Here's what you gotta hope for. So you still have a couple months before No Time to Die comes out. What you really need to happen is for Hans Zimmer to get canceled in a similar way to like Kevin Spacey, where they cut him out of all the money in the world.
They literally have to do, because the score is finished, just like how Kevin Spacey finished his role, but they had to refilm. Okay, I get it now.
With Christopher Plummer. Instead of getting Christopher Plummer, they're like, okay, fuck, we gotta redo the entire score for this movie. Who do we got? Ethan.
Let's go on SoundCloud. Let's look up James Bond parody score. Wait, this guy, he's done a film called Forever Till Eternity. That's it.
So if
We're gonna
anyone
get this
knows
guy.
any dark secrets about Hans Zimmer, hey, let us know.
Yeah, I wonder what's the lining of his purple corduroy jacket. Speaking of which, I'm gonna get one. But anyway, we're not talking about cord this time. We're talking about watches, and who better to talk watches with than with our old pal, even though he's younger than both of us, our old pal Aldous. Welcome back. Round of applause.
Hello.
Yeah,
Nice to be back,
returning-
boys.
returning champ. I was
been
going to
3
say
years.
he's our 3 years. I was going to say he's our only returning guest. Of course, that's not true. The Gooch brothers were there. He's our only returning guest who does not live like 20 minutes away from us.
That's right.
Right. Well,
How does that
20
feel?
hours. Feels
20 hours.
I
Wait.
mean, I guess. Well, okay. I'm going to go
Car?
on Google Maps.
How long does it take
Yeah.
to drive from Pasadena?
I'm just going to look
Toronto?
up Los Angeles to Toronto. Yeah, Los Angeles to Toronto. I will tell you exactly how long that is.
Yeah, a little behind the scenes peek for you for you listeners though. I just
There
came
we
from the Cone of Silence where Ethan and Spencer keep Mass and MJ, and yeah, it's
Okay,
not as
they're
it's
not
not as
allowed
bad
to
as
get
they
on mic.
say. It's actually quite nicely furnished.
That's where all the
Yes.
Patreon money goes to.
Yeah.
Spencer,
Decent
do you have an
kind of
update
size.
on that?
I wish I did. But
Great bit.
Google Maps is. Wait, here we go. It finally loaded in.
Here we go.
So, if you were to walk
Okay.
from Los Angeles to Toronto,
Yeah.
828 hours. If you were to drive, 37 hours. Not quite the 80, although you are going to be taking I-80 East. Wait, you said 20 hours, right?
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
probably
I was
wrong.
gonna say, did
That's
you,
wrong.
you just fucked yourself up.
Okay, well, it's 220. Just add another 2 if you bike there. So,
Right.
you learn something on this podcast. It's people, I think we're
I hope
education
you
on
learn a lot.
iTunes.
Yeah, it's the question
And
of the age.
now you know how long it would take to bike from Los Angeles to Toronto.
Right.
And you could use that to figure out how long it would take to bike elsewhere. It's like, okay, it takes this long to bike this distance, so it'll take this long to bike this distance.
Do you
It's
bike
like
all
a
this?
math equation.
No, I don't. Transit everywhere. A lot of
Have
people.
you forgotten how to ride one?
No, it's like riding a bicycle, right? You once
Yeah.
you learn, you
You
never
always
forget.
forget.
It's literally riding a bicycle.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
haven't ridden one in a while, but I think I'll be fine. Fingers crossed.
I did it once during quarantine, and it was scary because I was like, I was like, am I overthinking this? Like, is this crazy?
What, bike
Um,
rides?
Yeah, because I was actually like biking in the street, so I wasn't like, it was like in like, like it was like neighborhood / street, and there were cars. So I was just like,
I
hey, if
like biking.
one-
I like biking.
Yeah, if that's your first bike ride after a long hiatus, yeah, that's probably pretty nerve
yeah,
wracking.
it's been like
Riding
20
the traffic,
years or
yeah.
whatever, how long it is.
I was
okay?
I was thinking for a while because it's like I do like riding a bike. I was thinking for a while it's like, oh, I don't live that far away from my work. I could conceivably bike there. But I was like, oh, if I work a closing shift and I'm like tired, like I'm not gonna want to bike home late at night. And also like my bike isn't good for long distances. It's like a fucking like beach cruiser, like something I just use to ride to the beach or to the park or whatever. Can't ride long distances with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But all just really quick before we move on, launch into our topic of the day, which is watches.
It wasn't bicycles?
Why don't you tell us? And no, it's not riding bicycles.
Oh, I was misinformed.
Why don't you tell us a little bit of what's changed since last we saw you? Because as for those of you who don't know, Aldous was the focus of our episode on like uniforms. Having a uniform, having consistency, and all that. Why don't you tell us what's new with you, real quick?
Well, I've gotten older. When was the last time we did the? When did I do the pod? Well, was it 3 years ago? 4 years ago? Something like that.
3.
Yeah, 3.
So, yes,
at least 3.
I've gotten older. Still in school. Accounting and finance. Currently, that's what I'm studying.
A&F.
Yeah. Trying to survive the pandemic. Doing all right. We'll hang in there, as I'm sure a lot of you are as well. And you probably want to get into my clothes, right? My uniform. If that's changed
I
at
mean,
all.
it is the menswear podcast about the stuffiness.
Yes.
So
What are we gonna do about Thanksgiving if we can't have stuffiness?
we made that joke in the Patreon episode, I think.
Oh, we're doing it again.
Are we gonna? Well, we can make it again. I guess next Wednesday when we're streaming the day before Thanksgiving.
There you go.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll just tell us what new stuff you've got. Because before you had like a lot of like Spear McKay custom stuff. How has that changed?
Well, I don't rely nearly as much on Spear McKay anymore. I don't know. I think for various reasons, I don't want to spill too much tea here, but I've gotten a bit jaded with the company and just the way they do things with MTM. And it was always expensive, so I've sort of moved away from that. And I finally decided to dive into eBay in between now and since we last recorded the podcast. I had a non-traditional way of getting into menswear. I didn't start with eBay. I only recently got into it, and it's quite the bottomless pit. So to that end, I have a lot of new old sack suits, all there. J Press, Brooks, Southwick, and as a result of that, I'm less adverse to the idea of brand than I used to be. Because if you search up old stuff on eBay, like 9 out of 10 of that stuff is some shade of brand. If not, it's grey. Very hard to find.
We love it so much.
No wonder you do. Fancy that. But for the most part, my tastes have been stable, but the actual items I have has expanded substantially. I also have a lot more casual stuff. Recently, you guys saw I got into menswear, a lot of reprint military trousers and M41 jackets, that sort of good stuff. Short jackets.
Right.
Yeah, my tastes haven't changed much, but I have a much larger wardrobe now.
There you go.
Well, that's great. I mean, again, Spencer and I are big proponents of big wardrobes, and we say that with the most privilege because we live at home, and if we moved out and we had our little apartment,
it's nice to live in the suburbs where you have space.
That's clothes. Right. So the reason why you're here, and I mean, of course, you knew this. I'm talking to you as if I was addressing the audience, but the reason why you're here is because I think out of some of us in the core friend group, we've been friends with you for 3 years. You're probably the person who appreciates and is the most knowledgeable about watches than the rest of us. And people have been asking us to do an episode on watches. People have asked me because Spencer and I both wear watches occasionally, might not be as much. But we thought it would be great to have you on here and have a kind of a discussion on watches. And spoilers, it's not as structured. I mean, it is structured because we went over this earlier and we wanted to make sure that we stay on topic and everything.
Podcasts are like the jackets we like, unstructured.
But so I thought I would first talk about, because a lot of people, they ask me, and I'm a very vocal person saying I'm not a watch guy. I say that quite a bit.
He says that too much, in fact. Like, sometimes people don't even ask.
It's actually on my Tinder bio.
Yeah. He's like, I'm not into watches unless you're talking a watch what happens live on E.
I thought you were going into more salacious forms of watching.
What is this joke? What is this?
Yeah.
I'm implying that you really like I think it's Andy Cohen, the show where he talks to, like, the Real Housewives.
Yeah, the Bravo show.
Insipid
stuff.
Oh, it's on Bravo, not E.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm like, that doesn't sound like it's connecting with me.
Again, this is an unstructured episode. Nothing connects.
Yeah,
word association.
Yeah,
that's right. Call back.
Yeah.
But I want to say, I'm not really that into watches. Okay, like there's a couple of tenants here. Hey, shout out
David Tennant.
Never and Doctor Who.
Yep.
I've never seen. I never really got into watches because I never thought they were useful. Like a lot of people say, well, yeah, they are practical. I know Aldous, we've had many discussions over, practical clothing, and there is a practical function to it. But in my lifestyle, I just never had a use for it. I'm always on my phone. I grew up with tech and everything. MJ can probably Asian guys in tech. What else is new, right? And so I always had as far as I've had. As far as I can remember, I've always had like a smartphone or a cell phone. I would just check that. And I'm just so used to, need to know the time? Pull out the phone from either my trouser pocket or my breast pocket on my jacket. Just, whatever.
It seems like the words maybe it's not useful, it's necessary though. Because watches are useful to me. They have a use. They tell time and the date, so they have that complication. But they're not necessary. And I absolutely agree. If you have your phone, it does whatever a watch does and then some.
Right. Exactly. I mean, that's exactly it. I don't think I'm a very practical guy. Again, I love wearing. I'm not wearing a tie right now. Spoilers, but I do love wearing more ties and most of anyone in the Discord, and so and even they don't serve a purpose other than aesthetics. And so I mean, when it comes down to that part, it took a while for watches to kind of cross that border, because as you guys know, I do own some watches. I don't consider myself a watch guy. And to add to that, I never really knew anyone who had a watch. You know, I think for a long time, even before Spencer started wearing his field watch, and before I started like kind of thrifting this or looking on eBay for swatches, no one had one. I think the only one who had one was my friend Scott.
Not a lot of people in our age range wear watches in general. You don't
Well,
see
except
it,
Apple
a
watches,
lot
but
on
I
the
don't know if we're
generation
going to
that
count
grew up
those.
with cell phones.
Right.
Yeah, Apple watches.
mean-
They see plenty of those around.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah. Scott had a smartwatch. It was like an Android smartwatch for a while. And even then, like, I'm just speaking normally. Like, a lot of our friends are nerds, and they never
Ouch.
they would have. Well, I'm just talking about our actual. I mean, my IRL friends. Like, they didn't have watches, but they did have Nintendo DS. They had the fucking PS3 or PSP or whatever, right? Like, that was kind of like what if they were gonna spend money, that's what it was gonna be on. So for me, it kind of translated to, okay, do I want to spend money on this thing? And it would a watch supplement or add to my life in the way that a new video game could? Because watches, decent watches, I don't know, like $100 or maybe around that range. And that's probably
You can get almost 2 AAA games for that.
almost two.
Yeah, if you scrounge up an extra
$60.
$20.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, 60. Yeah. So it was one of those things, right? And even then, like, I have a lot of other impractical stuff, like jokers.
Impractical jokers, yeah.
yeah. But I've collected like Legos. I bought like Yu-Gi-Oh cards, and like, I don't know, it never connected with me in that way. My dad has a couple of watches, and even then over quarantine, or even like a couple of months before that, he started buying like vintage. Like, he has like a Longines. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, Longines.
Longines.
Yeah. Longines.
Longines,
Yeah.
He bought one of those.
Longines.
Yeah, he bought one of those on eBay or some watch site. It's very beautiful, but I look at him now, when he's home or when he's going to work, doesn't really wear the watch. My grandpa, I think, had a watch, but my parents gave him, or my mom gave him, a smartwatch. So like that whole idea, we talk a lot about that, menswear thing about, oh, you're gonna be a man, you're gonna have a watch. Never really had any kind of context with it. Might be a good thing, might be a bad thing. So I just removed from me all over. It removed me from that context and that kind of thought line until I got a gift. I got a friend, Stefan Carson, who we met in New York. He visited LA like 2 years ago, and he gave me a swatch he no longer wore. And finally having that was like, okay, here we go. Like, now I actually have a watch that's cool, that's interesting. Then now I can kind of get into that mindset. But until then, I needed that push over the edge. But that's a little bit about me and watches. Spencer, what about you?
So, I mean, it's like, I don't know. I've worn a watch for a long time. Not like every day, but I think I first started wearing watches in like, I don't know, middle school maybe. I don't remember a lot of the early watches I have. I don't think they were very good. There's one like early, watch that I did have, and this is like shortly after I started getting interested in like, I guess, like vintage fashion. So I was like kind of looking for something old school looking, and so I went within my budget. I went to Target and got like some just generic, plain, white face, brown leather strap watch, and I stopped wearing it because like I was on student government or something, and I had to meet with like the vice principal, and she was wearing like the same watch, and I was like, okay, maybe I'm not gonna wear this one.
Yeah.
But a lot of the watches I've had, it's like, I don't know, I like wearing watches. I don't wear them because I'm like, oh, I'm a man, I gotta wear them. I don't know. It's when I wear them enough times in a row, it just like feels like it's like part of any look. It feels weird to leave the house without a watch. I don't know. I like them mostly just because of like the kind of like visual interests they have. A lot of my watches I've had are vintage and stop working after a while because, again, I don't have a big budget for vintage watches, and if you want one that like works forever, you're gonna have to spend some money. I had a couple that had some like cool sentimental value. Like I got, vintage watches from my grandpa. Unfortunately, one of them stopped working, and I'm going to need to pay, like, I took it into a shop, and they said, you could pay $300 to get it repaired.
That's high.
And
that's
I have,
high.
That was like years ago. I still have the watch somewhere, but I have not ever decided, like, I'm going to pay $300 to get this repaired. And the other one was unfortunately lost in a move.
R.I.P.
Yeah. Since then, I mean, it's like, yeah, I've just gotten like vintage trench watches, vintage like field watches. Right now I'm wearing like a Timex because again, all my other watches broke. And it's not something that I'm ever, I never really want to spend a whole lot of money on watches. Like I don't think I've ever spent more than like $120 on a watch. It's like if I had more money, I would have more watches, but right now I'm happy with what I have, and I like wearing it every day, and it works with like everything, so I'm fine with just having one.
Yeah, at the end of the day,
Right.
even for all of us, even me, money becomes an issue here. We end up not talking about watches themselves and whether we like them. It's more about do we have the money or not, because of just how
and
expensive they get. I think it's ridiculous,
Exactly.
but anyway, that's me.
Well,
I mean, hey,
it's like our thing with shoes, where it took a while, because it's like I could spend money on shoes, or I could spend money on a jacket or something like that. Where it's the same thing now. It's like I could spend money on this watch, or I can get something, more interesting. Even though you might wear the watch more.
And I was gonna say too. I mean, we're gonna discuss a lot of this, as we move on. But like, the fact that you said I can wear this watch with everything kind of says a lot. Where, I'm sure we can speak for you, but like, okay, then you have your Timex, you're fine. So right now, I could buy a fucking camo pair of pants. I could buy a short coat and add that to like a whole new look, while a watch doesn't really add to it. I mean, I guess it does. That might be an overreach, but more like in terms of like noticeable change of outfit vibes. You would rather have, it's a jacket will change that literally, as opposed to a watch.
But people
right?
who buy watches, and I guess I have to include myself in that category, and multiple watches, we aren't really thinking about how it will complement an outfit in that case. We're thinking about, I like the look of that watch. I want that watch.
Yeah.
I'm buying that watch. There is no consideration of outfits, because if we did consider outfits, it wouldn't make any sense, because you can't.
Right.
Like with tailoring, you can't see them. They're underneath a
absolutely.
shirt cuff. Well, they
Well,
should be.
I
Anyway.
was gonna say, the more we talk about this, because very recently we had a pod on how to introduce new items. Not a pod, a stream on that. And it was very interesting to see MJ and Matt's difference. It's more calculated. It's more, you got to make sure cost per wear, compared to like Kiyoshi, Spencer, and me, where like sometimes you just impulsively buy things. And I think it's very telling, where with a watch, if you're not into it, you definitely going to make sure the first watch you buy and spend money on, it's got to fulfill everything you need. It's got to be super practical. It's got to be the right price and whatever. But after you break through that, because again, we discussed this before we actually start recording, as as Aldous has said, once you break that and you start getting into that idea and the mindset, it makes everything so much easier. Just like with like tailoring, right? Like, you can't really sell someone on the brown check jacket, even though it might be more versatile than a navy jacket. A guy's got to get into it by wearing a navy jacket first, because it'll probably fulfill work, or whatever. But then once they get into it, like, then they find out that they don't wear the practical one anymore. Now they start buying the random shit that they actually enjoy, right? And I think that could be said for watches. It's just a little bit harder as a sell to some people like me, because a watch isn't exactly too noticeable, right? But Aldous, why don't you talk us through a little bit of a primer with your background in watches? Because then we could talk about design and what we like and vibes after. But let's hear your history with it real quick.
So for a very long time, way before I got into clothing, got into anything really, I think I might have been maybe 4 or 5. I grew up in Hong Kong, and I entered this shop one day, an antique shop, and they had one of those desk display cases full of watches, and I distinctly remember, I was so young at the time, they were all eye level. It was a desk display, but they were all eye level, and I went down the line looking at Rolexes from the 50s. I think one of them was a reference 6084. So that's that
Sure.
sort of thing. And I remember just being absolutely fascinated by NAS, and also by the fact that they had a working rotary phone in there. But anyway, but that's besides the point. So I always knew that I had an inherent interest in watches, but for many years I put that to one side because I didn't want to cultivate that interest, because I knew if I did, I'd end up spending way too much money on
You knew
watches.
this at 5 years old?
What?
You knew this at 5 years old?
I knew this when I was 6, 7, 8. You know, I could have gotten into it
I think
early.
when
but
I think when I was
Yeah.
5 or 6, I still thought like writing a check was just like free money. Like that was my understanding of like
Yeah,
the financial
I was like, wait,
system.
why do you have to balance a checkbook? Isn't there just money in the bank all the time?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, but yeah, quickly I realized that I wouldn't have been in any position to sustain that if I were to dive into it right away. So I kept pushing it aside, deliberately not looking at watch stuff, just so I wouldn't get it.
Yeah, when you were 10.
But yeah, like a year ago, I decided to give in, and yeah, I was right. Very quickly, I spent a lot of money, and now I have a lot
Wait,
of watches.
a year ago?
A year ago, yeah.
Wait, okay. In my head, you've always
Nope.
had
Well,
watches.
I've always had the interest, but I deliberately didn't cultivate it. I didn't know shit a year ago.
That's actually new news
Wait,
for
but
me.
we like went watch shop, not we're like watch browsing, I guess. In New
Maybe he
York,
didn't
and
have-
you-
we
yeah,
didn't
maybe
go.
he
We
didn't
didn't go.
own-
We didn't go watch browsing in New York. I think we saw watches, but we didn't go watch browsing.
I think we at least stopped into a store, and you were like, I remember
He
you
did. He looked at like the Nomos watches or the Young House watches
Yeah,
at like
we-
the Armory, though. But that's different. We're at
Yes,
the Armory.
but
That's
again, the
different.
key
We're
the
at
key is
There's
I didn't know
another-
shit about them. Since I was
Okay,
5,
yeah,
I
yeah.
had the interest in watches, but I deliberately didn't cultivate it. Didn't
Wait, so
read anything about
Did you
it.
have a watch in New York? Did you wear one?
I did. It was one my dad gave to me. An IWC Portofino Nancy hand in hand. That was my only watch.
IWC?
That was my only watch. I didn't buy any
That's kind
watches.
of a
I didn't
pretty
read
big
into it.
only watch to have, though.
Yeah, it was pretty good. I kind of I didn't
I-
treat that
I
as well
do-
I should have. It's kind of beat now, but yeah.
I mean, that's cool. I mean, I mean, we'll get into our watches later, but I just quickly want to say, and Spencer talked about his grandfather's watch. I want to talk about my grandfather's watch real quick. So I'm pretty sure my Lolo, my Filipino grandfather, wears Citizen watches. I don't think he's been a big watch guy, but my grandfather on my dad's side, my paternal grandfather, he had a I never saw him wear it. Okay, maybe he did. I don't. I can't remember. My dad's from Canada, so this side of the family's in Canada. So I haven't seen him. I saw him shortly before he passed, and after that, my dad gave me, whatever bequeathed me was a it's a gold face and case, but a two-tone bracelet, Omega DeVille, and I don't. It doesn't seem to me like one of the expensive ones, and it's not one of the expensive ones.
Yeah, it's from the
but
it's
cool.
it's quartz from the 80s, right? Is that what it was?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
It's not one of the 60s.
yeah,
DeVilles.
80s. Yep. But it's cool. Just wanted to shortly say that, and you guys might have seen it in a couple of my outfits. I actually been kind of leading into it because of the whole
I mean, yeah, it's a
like
good-looking
70s.
watch.
Yeah, I mean, at the time, right? Like I was like, oh, I rather wear a Swatch because but now I'm like, okay, this is kind of gaudy. Like it's kind of fun wearing it with like Chelsea boots and like and like denim per the 70s, right? Anyway, so keep going. I'll just that's crazy. I totally thought you had this whole collection that you've talked to, and if you're in the Patreon, you probably know this. Him and Chris will talk about watches. Him and Shane will talk about watches. Sorry, Shane. We'll get you on the pod some other time about watches. I know he's one of the big watch guys in the group.
It's a watch head. for
Right,
sure.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that'd be
I just went through my because most of the watches I ever got came off eBay. The first watch I ever bought was bought in May of 2019. So, yeah, it's like a year and a half ago.
Wow.
But
didn't
you're
have
right.
that
I
Time
did look at
flies.
Nomoses in New York, and yeah, that didn't happen. But like I said, I've always had the interest, but I deliberately pushed it down. Deliberately stopped myself from looking at various sites, reading up on this, so as to not fall into that trap.
That's fair.
I guess.
and yet to us, when you talk about reference numbers, I'm like, okay, thanks for telling us random numbers put together.
Yep.
I never really I mean, it makes sense, now that you think about it, right? Like, how you and Shane will be like, oh yeah, the 24608.
I mean, yeah, it's the same thing as like referencing like I don't know specific like military jackets or
Yeah, no, exactly.
fabric
Yeah,
books or
like,
something like that.
like
Yeah.
L501s versus 510s or what? Yeah,
Yeah.
I totally get it. But I just because I've been so outside of that world, right? It's just so bizarre to me, or so different.
Yeah, it's daunting, but it's something you get used to. It's just it's a moniker. It's a way of differentiating stuff, and eventually you realize that eventually you can say 1601, and everyone thinks of the date just from the 60s. It's that sort of thing.
Sure. I mean, now I will.
Yeah.
But yeah, so since then, what have you learned since again over this past year of buying watches and everything?
Oh God. There's well, I learned that I was right and that it's very expensive.
Yeah.
It's the reason why I still don't have any penny loafers now. And just
Yeah, that's a big answer. See, there's a good differentiation right there, right? Because I think Spencer and I would have bought shoes before we bought a watch.
Yeah. Again, I always had the interest. I don't know. It's like there's a Pandora's box of things I've learned here and there. I guess I've gotten better at gauging things off eBay, and I think there's a similar. It's similar to probably with clothing as well. The best deals tend to be obscured by really shitty pictures. Is that true for tailoring as well? Sometimes.
Yeah. It's
I
like
could
you
see
can
that.
find you can. I mean, we were talking to blanking. Unfortunately, blanking on his name, but the editor of the W.M. Brown Project when he was at the Bloke.
Matt Hranick?
Yeah, Matt Hranick.
That guy, yes.
I saw his fucking puzzle at the Hallmark store /USPS when I was mailing something earlier today. He has he has a new puzzle now. It's not the vintage watches. Hey, speaking of the episode, Matt Hranick has a vintage watch puzzle available at Hallmark stores, presumably.
Of course he does.
He now has one that's like a vintage Jeep, very on brand for him.
Oh yeah, because what his new book is, A Man in His Car.
There you go. But anyway, he was telling us that's his secret on eBay is he buys stuff with shitty pictures because no one
they
else
are
is
the
bidding on
best deals. People, the watch I'm wearing right now, 50s Bolivar, that had the worst fucking pictures that I've ever seen. It looked completely different. The way I don't understand why you take a picture that makes the dial look more yellow than it actually is, more aged than it actually is, but he did it. But through just ways to gauge it, I guess. If I think of just one general rule, like if you have a dark background, that tends to make the dial face look cleaner and lighter, which is why you see a lot of listings of watches. They put it against a black background, makes it look prettier that way. Just little tips and tricks like that I've learned through eBay to sort of gauge watches accurately from the pictures, because as we've been saying, watches are expensive, so when you pull that trigger you want to be as sure about, at least if you're making the kind of money we make, you want to be as sure about that decision as
Zero money.
Yeah, sad story. Yeah, you want to be sure about yourself when you pull the trigger, because watches are expensive.
Absolutely, yeah.
And
Yeah. So do you use like special search? I mean, like you said, like
yeah, I was going to get into that actually.
Okay, perfect. Go ahead.
Yeah, through learning about watches, I've expanded my knowledge, and from there I can really narrow things down with search words, with keywords. And that's narrowed things down quite a bit. Whereas before, maybe when you started out menswear, you were looking at 3-button suits or sack suits, and you get tens of thousands of results. But now you can maybe throw in Southwick, and that will narrow it down. And most of their stuff tends to be pretty good. And likewise, in an analogous manner, before I would search 50s watches when I knew nothing, but now I can search Bolivar, for example. That narrows it down, but more than that, Bolivar L7, for example, which is a date code from 1957, or the movements, Bolivar 10. The 10 series of movements would have come out and would have been most used in the 50s, early 60s, so that really narrows things down that way. When you're searching for watches, when people narrow things down, it's a lot of numbers to remember. If not reference numbers, which are usually printed on the inside of the case back, but not always. That's more of a Swiss thing. The Americans didn't do that sort of thing. Movement numbers. And Bolivar, for example, got into some really convoluted codes. Like I think the movement in this bullet I'm wearing now is like 10 BPAC, and which is different from like 10
British Petroleum.
BPAAC
Said it before I did.
or BPAAAC. You know, just weird shit like that. But how to summarize this? By immersing yourself in this world, eventually you learn about specific details that you can use to narrow your searches down. And usually those take the form of codes, because that's how watch guys work. We like long strings of numbers
You're
and
a
letters.
master of codes, like Agent Kington. It's an
What?
on cinema at the cinema joke. Matt'll get it. He's laughing right now.
Yeah, don't get on mic.
Yep.
Well, that's interesting because, like, I mean, I've bought probably 80% of my watches online, on eBay. Like I said, some of them were gifts, like my Timex Marlin, the reissue one that came out a couple, three or so years ago, whatever that was. That was a gift from my family. They did ask if I wanted a Tissot, but I asked for cash because I wanted to pay for something else back then. But since later on I got a Marlin because it's nice. We'll get into our aesthetic taste later
Marlin's
on.
great, yeah.
Right.
Like I said, the what do you call it? The white swatch that I have was a gift as well. But yeah, the ones I bought on eBay, I don't really look up reference numbers because I don't really buy those particular ones. I do remember to, when I do look at watches, I will tag Aldous. I'll put it in the watch chat that we have on Discord. I'll tag Chris, and Shane for them to look at. But yeah, I mean, my approach was always kind of similar to tailoring. I look up 1950s watch and I just look through all of them. Maybe I'll add in 1950s working watch, and then I will see what ends up there.
Right.
And then if it looks decent, if they say, oh, it's been recently, service or whatever, obviously that's better. It's kind of like buying in like a used
but you
airsoft
can't
gun
trust
on eBay.
those. People say service, and maybe they did get it serviced, but
Well, I was about to say, I got this Gruen 50s probably. It's like a tank.
Gruen went out of business in 1958, so if it's a tank, probably early 50s, late 40s.
Cool.
Good to know, yeah.
Good to know. Yeah, no, seriously, yeah. So like that's like I got that watch. It was running slow, and I got it serviced, but I think they just cleaned it. I don't think they actually like did the thing I wanted them to do. And then I think they actually replaced the movement. So like it was a very. I got the watch for like $40.
Yeah. Right.
I don't know, or they did something to. I don't know what they did, but it works now. It doesn't like run fast or slow. Whatever the issue was, it doesn't do that anymore. And it's like my go-to like. It used to be my go-to fancy watch because it's very clean. I know you talk about Belovas. You talk like there's a image of Chase in the essay that I wrote, where he has his dad's 50s Belova or whatever it is, and that used to be like my favorite one because the first ever watch I got, that wasn't. I think I also had like that like cheap Timex knockoff from Target. I think I also had that one. That I eventually just ran out of batteries. I just didn't care about it anymore to replace the batteries. But yeah, the first one I bought in person and in general was like 2017. I was at the Rose Bowl flea market, and I got like I can't even think of the name. I had to when I was writing this article, I had to go back and forth because I would like pick it up, look at it, or to remember how to describe it. Then I put it down. I'm like, oh shit, I didn't write the name. I had to
It's like I don't remember what this watch looks like anymore.
Yeah, but it was like one of those like Bruin or Gruen, whatever those tanks. Another like 50s tank or whatever.
Bolivar, Elgin, Hamilton, Waltham. Any of those ring a bell?
Who the fuck knows? I mean, they all sound familiar because I'm pretty sure I also had like an old Hamilton or whatever that also stopped working. But yeah, I got that one. It was a tank. It was a black strap. It was really cool, very deco. Stopped work. Oh no, it didn't stop working. The hands kept falling off, and I think they need to replace the hand because I think a guy reattached it, but it just kept falling off. And I'm like, okay, fuck this watch. I paid like $35 for it. They charged me to fucking put the hand back on. Fuck this shit, right? But so anyway, the whole thing is now the Gruen that I got has what became like my go-to like fancy watch, but it all changed because I don't really wear fancy watches. The fancy watch I wear now is that two-tone DeVille, which is great because it's very subversive, right? Because it's gold and everything. But yeah, maybe now we'll talk about, because we hit like the halfway mark or a little bit. Let's talk about just what we like from watches, because I feel like that's a big thing. I'm sure.
I want
Go
to
ahead.
start with something, and this is the reason that I've only bought vintage watches, and it's really hard for me to shop for watches.
Yep, say it.
The biggest thing for me is the size of watches.
Yep.
We think that
100%.
it's like, we think that modern like casual jackets and sweaters and shit like that is too long. Well, guess what? Almost universally, modern watches, in my opinion, are too big.
Yep.
That's my opinion too, though.
I will not wear a watch larger than 38, and even like 38 I still think is a little bit big. I would prefer
It's like 36 or maybe
36 is the sweet spot. So that's why it's like
34.
Yeah,
I
like
like 'em smaller
34 to
personally.
36. But I've had watches that are like 32 millimeters, like something like that. But yeah, I can't buy most modern watches because they're all too big for me. Like I think they just look. I just don't like big watches on my wrist. It's not that I think I have a small wrist. I just don't like big watches.
Are you guys aware that case size has fluctuated over time? Kind of like how...
Yeah, I know that. Yeah. Like I know that there are like vintage like watches that are like 40 millimeters. It's not because I'm like trying to be a purist. I just don't like big watches, even if they're old.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, it's kind of like how as much as I love 30s lapels, I still hate shoulder padding. It's just I hate it.
Yeah, for the record, I don't like big watches either. But they did.
What is the consensus in like, I guess the classic menswear watch community, not just like the watch community
and stuff. Yeah,
but like specifically. Like, do people care about that, or is it like 38, 40 millimeters?
Oh yeah, when you want to get to if you're in vintage watches, you've pretty much inherently accepted the fact the enjoyment and appreciation for smaller case sizes, because it's very hard to find a vintage watch over 36 millimeters. There was a trend in the late 40s, kind of went with the bold look, I think. Longer jackets, wider shoulders, also big ass watches. They're late 40s Omegas, oversized at about 38 millimeters across, and I actually kind of like those. There's something endearing about them, but it never got more than that. And if you ask the modern person, 38, I mean, it wouldn't be surprising if they replied back that that's a woman's watch. I can't wear a 38 millimeter watch; it's too small. Yeah, and that's the biggest vintage watch you could probably find. That's proper vintage. Yeah, but I think I've lost the original question.
No, I know. I think it's basically I think people have gotten used to it, just like how people got used to shorter jacket lengths in terms of like modern menswear, right?
Right.
Because if you look, obviously watch guys are going to be more into it, but like you look in the general consensus of like the world, like real men, real style, whatever. People that regular guys will still like a big watch for some reason.
Well, I think it's just because they're so commonplace. It's like that's like the standard.
It's
Exactly.
it's the current schema. It's what's accepted in society. And it's not that it's one is more right than the other, but if you've grown up just seeing everyone with a watch that looks a certain way on the wrist, the way a 38 or 40 millimeter watch does, then once you put on a 32 millimeter bullet from the 50s, for example, it looks weird.
Yeah.
One thing I think about that though is an aesthetic reason as to why watches were smaller back in the day was because guys used to exist in long sleeve stuff more often than they do now. Because I can see what people are saying about 34 millimeter watches looking kind of puny if you got a t-shirt on and you can see your forearms and maybe a bit of your biceps as well. It does look a bit strange. But once you've got a long sleeve shirt on and it's just the watch peeking, it's just a bit of your wrist and that watch, I think a 30 millimeter watch looks kind of dumb, and a 30 millimeter watch in that context looks better. What I'm saying is that vintage watches were smaller because people had to fit them underneath their shirt cuffs. Yeah, people had to fit them with their tailoring. And
I was gonna say that there is I'm not sure where I saw this. Maybe it was Permanent Style, but like he was talking about like cuff style, like shirt cuff styles. Yeah. And I think he was saying how like the single barrel cuff is like when you wear it like that, and it's got to be like fitted on your wrist like a bespoke shirt. Like a bespoke shirt needs like a smaller the watch size, because otherwise it just kind of would bunch up, right? Like because if the watch will fit in the gap between your hand and your shirt. But with a bespoke shirt, you want it, to minimize that distance. But a watch will block that. So the way you get around it is by wearing like a smaller watch.
Right.
I don't think you could wear a fucking G-Shock.
Yeah, you could. I mean,
or an Invicta. Like you can do whatever the fuck you want.
Yeah.
But it's just like.
How about wearing
bad.
the big watch over the cuff?
Yeah, Agnelli style, as they
That's
say.
what you gotta do.
Oh, you guys see the some of the Gianni Agnelli? He was the head of Fiat, I think, in the 50s, 60s.
Yes, he was.
And
he
wore watches
Ford
over his
versus
shirt
Ferrari.
cuff, famously. So Agnelli.
It was in Ford versus Ferrari. That's right.
Yeah.
Very briefly, but he was there.
Yeah.
We'll have to rewatch it to see if he's doing the watch thing and like his little cameo.
If the costume designer got that thing right about him. Also, I'd like to say that watches these days are quite thick. It's not something that a lot of people talk about, but there's no one really cares anymore. Even dress watches these days, they tend to be about 10 millimeters at least, if not thicker. And the reasoning for that is they don't want to get sued by the consumers. They want to overbuild that case as much as they can, so people then come back and say, "Hey, moisture got into this," or whatever. They want to avoid as much as possible. They even put sometimes they even put anti-magnetic layers in there, like a steel back. Just like you'd never need it, but we're just gonna over-engineer it just because.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter anymore because without shirt cuffs, who cares? If you don't have any sleeves, you can have as thick of a watch as you want. But that's another thing I miss. In addition to watches being big now, they're also thick. And even if you have a smaller case size, watches are still thick, and that's also an issue when trying to fit underneath a shirt cuff. Watches are just too big in general these days. There's
yes, they are.
If you want to wear them with tailoring, I mean, don't think it's bad. I don't think I can make any categorical argument that large watches are bad. But if your goal is to wear it with tailoring, if your goal is to wear a watch with tailoring, you'd probably be better served by vintage, or at the very least vintage inspired stuff. Stuff that follows that aesthetic line.
Right. Well, here we still have a couple of topics here. I don't mind if we go a little over an hour because I'm sure people are going to really enjoy this episode anyway.
It's a guest episode.
Yeah. But let's talk a little bit about the menswear, like watches in menswear. We were talking about how people prefer big watches, and we'll finish off with our aesthetic taste in watches because that's kind of just more opinion. But let's talk a little bit about like the culture around it, because I think that's something that always kind of turned me off on it in general. And I'm not saying that it's like this stuff happens in spades, right? Where like the Real Men Real Style group will say, "Oh, you gotta wear a suit to be a man." I definitely think that the Style Forum guys, that the Savile Row guys, they have that, but it's just worded differently. Just like how we might argue that there isn't like, oh, well, you have to wear a watch to be a man, but I definitely think there's a little bit of that like kind of pervasing in menswear, because it's, as we talked about in the lifestyle podcast, it's very if you know. So if a guy isn't into watches, this is just me, but I do feel like, okay, so you're not that into this whole menswear thing. You know what I mean? And that happens when almost all the best guys in menswear that we look up to, whether they are regular guys or brand owners or tailors, they all like watches to an extent. And maybe I'm just extrapolating here, but like Ethan Newton, right? I don't think he's talked a lot about watches, but he has a couple of like Omegas. I think he's photographed at least.
He's got a lot of watches. He's got
yeah. Well, I mean, like compared to like say like in my head, like you got like Mark Cho, who has. Every time I see a moon face on a watch, I'm just like, okay, that's like fucking 30,000, at least like $20,000, whatever. I don't know how much it is, but that's insane. I don't know why you need it. We'll talk about that later on, because I don't know why you need a fucking moon face. There's a picture I have, I think, of Mark Cho wearing one where I'm like, how do you read this thing? There's like 4 different things on here. But yeah, there's like that whole idea of like, you're just not as into it, and I think that it might be unfair of me to say, because I feel like we do this, right? Like if a guy says I'm into menswear, but he wears like an H&M suit, clearly you're not getting in the program.
Yeah,
so
one thing I like to say
I'm
even is you're looking at it from a practical perspective, which is totally valid. But if you're evaluating watches from a purely practical standpoint, then yeah, they absolutely don't make sense. I agree with you. Practically, watches are useless.
Well,
but then we're
yeah.
talking about aesthetics, because if I was a non-menswear guy, I could say, why do you need a suit? Why do you need a brown suit in addition to a navy suit? A blue suit serves the purpose well, but you got that brown suit because you like the look of a brown suit, or you like the look of a check jacket. It's stuff you like by that point. It's not about practicality. Yeah.
I don't know. I guess my point, it's less about that, because I think I can understand that, especially now, as like I said earlier, I have more watches than Spencer now, just because I bought a couple on eBay, and I just, I have some other ones that we'll get into before we close. But I do think it's less common, right? Because it's like when you're into menswear, like we discussed in lifestyle, like you tend to like nicer food, right? You have this idea of, because you like the best an artisan can make for you, or the best quality, you probably want that in other aspects of your life, and that naturally translates to watches.
Yeah, you've hit on something, even, because there is an archetype of a menswear guy. That type of person is into menswear. He's also usually into food and wine and cooking and cars and watches. It all and cigars. It all kind of gels together for the most part, with some exceptions.
Yeah, I'm not trying to point fingers, but there is one very famous guy that kind of has all that kind of stuff. And I'm not saying he's bad. I'm just saying it's. I don't think he's judging.
People who like one of these things tend to like the other things as well.
Yeah, and I can't connect with them. Maybe I don't feel like a real quote menswear guy. And again, like I said, I don't have to. But obviously, the outsiders, you want a little bit of a community, right? And and not being into watches as much as the other person might hold you back. Not in like a bad way, just it's like one less thing to talk about, right? Like say you like you're with a whole bunch of other nerds, and they're talking about a video game that you have no interest in, but they're gonna keep talking about the video game, and it's no one's fault, but it's just you just
so it's like one of those things where if you work in retail, you should learn about sports even if you don't care about it.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're involved in menswear, eventually you're just gonna kind of get into watches because
you're gonna have to, right? And it helps. I think
osmosis you'll eventually develop a knowledge. I think, even if you don't really care.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think you can feel free to talk about this all, but I just want to say like that's something that always kind of held me back, I guess. Like I think it was me being a little contrarian, like, okay, yeah, you're gonna talk about that. Well, I'm gonna ignore it.
Well,
you know what
fuck
I mean?
you.
So
yeah. I'm gonna go bearistic.
Yeah, joke's on me,
Yeah.
right? Because again, I've spent more on watches than Spencer has, so
Right.
the joke's on me,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think about watch culture? I'll just someone.
Yeah, watch culture runs into similar. In the same, this calls back to the elitism in menswear episode, right? People have this sort of image, and I think it's fundamentally based on the idea of just money. A suit costs money that you didn't have to spend. In that vein, watches cost money that you don't have to spend, but it's heightened because the amount of money you spend on watches is about 10, if not 20, if not 30 times more than you spend on Salvador suits. A Patek Philippe, or Patek Philippe, I don't know. A Patek Philippe, yeah.
Okay.
Stephen Paddock Philippe.
Yeah, fuck that. I'm going to say the Jaeger LeCoultre. Jaeger LeCoultre, Jaeger, yeah, whatever. Jaeger LeCoultre, yeah, whatever. Yeah.
What was the joke in Succession that Tom sells? He gives Roy, the patriarch of the family, like a Patek Philippe for his birthday, and has like a dumb little joke about it that is immediately like blown off by Roy. I'll look it up.
I don't remember, but I'll just keep going.
Yeah, in the meantime, Patek Philippe and Vacheron Constantin, those watches cost like $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, $80,000. So if someone scoffs at you in your $5,000 bespoke suit, can you imagine imagine heightening that to your $60,000 wristwatch that you had to get on a waiting list.
Two cars in the form of one piece of metal.
Yeah, it's like I mean there was a time when I tried on a watch at the Double RL store, and we'll get into this. It's one of my dream watches. It was a 1950s Rolex Explorer, and it literally cost the same amount as my car. And I was like, okay,
like 16K probably Rolex Explorer 1016.
It was like it was like
1016
between like
probably,
15 and 20 or something like that. I think there's a Double RL markup, so it was around 20,000.
I don't know how much time we want to spend here. There's so much we can talk about. This could be a fucking 5-hour podcast episode. But quickly though, how did 1016, the Rolex Explorer, from the that was from the 60s, 70s, and 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. How that is now worth $20,000 blows my fucking mind. It's ridiculous. But yeah, maybe another pod.
Was it? I mean, like, were they originally? I mean, because they weren't luxury.
They
watches.
were not
Like, that's the thing
luxury
about
watches.
Rolex.
They were some
And
pieces,
especially the,
yeah.
like the Rolexes that I like are all like tool watches.
Yes, well, Rolexes
And
were
so,
tool
you know-
watches by design, by brand, all of them.
Exactly, and so it's like it's like a lot of the like Fidel Castro and Che Guevara both had Rolex watches, and sometimes people like to be like, oh, look at these guys, like revolutionaries.
Yeah,
but
they
have,
weren't
like,
balling.
Rolexes. But
It's
like,
just that a GMT
yeah, they
back
were-
then cost like $1,000, maybe. I'm not really sure what the
and it
exact
was like
numbers are.
practical. They were fucking
Yeah.
in the jungle all
Yeah,
the time.
but now a GMT costs. I think the list price is like 10,000 thereabouts. But like you can't get it retail. You have to get it through the grey markets, and then it'll probably be marked up to like $30,000.
Jeez.
No, thank you.
Yeah, me neither.
Well, it's all money laundering.
Well, yeah, that's the only.
quite
that's the only
possible,
explanation,
actually, yeah.
right? The biggest mob is Rolex.
Yeah, the fact that Hong Kong is a major market for watches. This is based off nothing other than my own speculation, but it kind of lends credence to that money
Allegedly.
laundering idea. To be honestly, yeah.
A legend. This is a good segue to probably the end of that watch culture little segment, because we talk about it being an investment. We talk about that kind of stuff, and it just, to me, it always seemed tacky to wear, again, the cost of one car to two cars on your little
Fuck a
wrist
car,
right
a house.
here,
House payments. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, you're making it worse. But I think, again, as someone who is very so when we talk about, okay, well, maybe you just like it that much, that's why you buy it, or like aesthetics, right? But to me, I think aesthetics, is a very holistic thing. So like buying that much on a sport coat, right, or a like a bespoke suit, you're buying to affect whatever the house style is, right? Like you love the Drake's aesthetic, so you buy the suit from Drake's. You like the Anderson and Shepard, you buy that. You like the Edward Sexton, you buy that. A watch isn't as overt. I mean, it literally is this very small piece. So maybe, like, again, like I think I would even spend more, not more, but I'd rather buy a ring than buy a watch, because a ring is even a more overt, aesthetically adding thing, especially if you're into tailoring, because then, if, like I said earlier, if you're into tailoring, you're not going to see a watch peek out, unless I'm not going to buy an Invicta. But it's one of those things where getting over that is kind of pretty tough for me, and only when the outer aesthetics are stabilized, then a watch makes sense for me to buy, because it's like, okay, like I think, as a guy who is younger, and we'll get into this in the next episode in 2 weeks about like money and income and everything with menswear, I always kind of felt bad, like, I don't look the way I want to, because I wasn't wearing like a full canvas jacket, and there is like a full canvas jacket drapes differently than a half or no canvas jacket, right? Or a bespoke jacket has better lapels than like an off the rack, because it just looks differently. So obviously 3 years ago, when I barely when I was still thrifting things, I had some sack jackets, I had some H&M, or no, not H&M, I had some like Suit Supply. Obviously then a watch didn't make any sense, but now where a Spear McKay or the suits from Atelier Fugue or my Ascot Chang or Ring jacket has put me more in that level of appearance that I want to be at. Now I'm like, okay, so now when I buy a watch, whether it's a cheap one or maybe I save up for vintage 50s one on eBay that might be like $100 or whatever it is, now it makes more sense, because okay, now I'm just kind of adding to what I already look like. So it was interesting for me to kind of bring it back to the original topic here, like where guys who dress shitty or don't have any style have like a really big, like, they love watches.
Yep.
And like, that's crazy how like you put
why
all of your aesthetic
crazy,
attention.
Yeah, why is it crazy?
Well, because like you put all of your aesthetic attention on the small thing that maybe it is, maybe it's this, maybe it's because you look at it.
But it's not.
And
Yeah,
that's
it's
what
not
brings me
aesthetic
joy
attention
more.
though. No one who's
and
really
again,
into watches
that's
buys watches to look outwardly a certain way, in the same way that you buy a suit to make yourself, I don't know, look better, I guess, look slimmer, whatever. No, people buy watches because they want to look at it for themselves and enjoy that feeling.
That's the fundamental difference, I think, because because I always liken it to menswear, right? And maybe I should look at it like, fucking
It's
like
not
collecting
menswear.
Star Wars action figures,
It's not.
right? Or collecting like, because I do that, right? And no one's seeing my Star Wars action figures except for me.
You got to start wearing them on your wrist.
Maybe I do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think, again, it's all about, this whole podcast, the whole essay, it's all about me getting to that mindset where I'm like, you know what? Like, it's okay to buy this just because I like it, or why other people might have that mentality. Because, it's weird that, I always have had discussions about practicality, but it's weird that, in terms of aesthetics, like personal viewing aesthetics versus outward aesthetics, right? Like that's something that's I never really thought of until we've had to talk about watches. So I don't know Spencer, what do you got to unpack about that? What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, so just going back to like, kind of like, why we spend money elsewhere versus like spending on watches. Like the other thing is, and I don't remember if we talked about this in the episode or like, 10 minutes before we started recording, but watches are like an extra thing. Like if you're not wearing a watch, no one's going to say, what the fuck? Where's your watch? Like, But it's like, if you don't have a, jacket or shirt or tie or something like that, then that's like, maybe not tie, jacket or shirt, I guess.
Yeah, and even that, I was going to say, even then, like, right, like, if you want to do a milsurp look, you don't need a watch to do a milsurp look. You don't need a watch to do an Ivy look.
A watch can add to it, but not having a watch doesn't necessarily take away from anything.
Yeah. But then that goes, I'm sure Aldous, you're about to say, like, well, that's why you're the one looking at it. That's why you buy it, right?
I don't know.
What do you got? Bring it out to us before we move on.
Right.
To
Well,
our
the original point of discussion of this section was why of watch culture, right? Why it pushes people away, kind of like.
I mean, it's all related, that it's that and this whole aesthetic thing. But go ahead and unpack it.
Well, more recent is the aesthetic thing, so I guess I'll speak to that. It's a misconception to think to try to analyze watches and fashion from the same fundamental, from the same origin point, from the same genesis point, because they're fundamentally different. When a person buys a watch, I said this before, I'll say it again. When a person buys a watch and really is into watches, he's not really thinking about how he'll make his outfit better. He likes the watch, and he got the watch because he liked the watch, which is why.
I mean, so are you one of the people that like? Are you like do most watch guys nerd out on aesthetics, or do most watch guys nerd out on like, oh my god, the movement?
We have movement nerds, but mostly aesthetics, because to be a movement nerd, it's first of all it's difficult.
You are.
It is complicated.
Are the official spokesperson for us, so.
Yeah, I'm speaking for all watch people.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, this is what I think. Movement nerds exist, but it's a headier. It's a headier subsection to get into. You need to know, it's complicated. You need to know about gears and engineering and all that sort of thing. Yeah. So aesthetics is more popular. It is what people look at after all. You can have a very nice movement, but if the watch looks like shit, it's still not going to sell. But you can, on the other hand, you can have a very pretty looking watch with a very mediocre movements and.
I don't know, man.
Like hotcakes.
Some stuff I see on Hodinkee, I'm like, I don't know, that's ugly.
Also,
we'll get to that later. Keep going.
As far as watch movements are concerned, mechanical watches are pretty mature technology by this stage. Most mechanical watches that operate on the balance wheel principle are the same. They have the same base. They work fundamentally the same, and they may actually be the same, because these days all the movement manufacturers have consolidated out of necessity into large conglomerates. Like the ETA group produces movements for multiple watch brands. Tissot, like a Tissot and a Hamilton. A lot of them are fundamentally powered by the same ETA movements, same ESSA movements, the exact same movements. So yeah, there's not much to nerd out as far as movements are concerned. Seiko's doing some interesting stuff with spring drive and their hybrids, quartz/mechanical stuff in that vein. That's interesting, but watch movements haven't really changed much. They're pretty stable, so there isn't, and they're complicated, so there isn't much nerding out there. It's mainly about aesthetics.
Right. Okay.
Speaking of aesthetics,
So how do you feel? So you don't think that they look at it for just the aesthetics, right? They're not trying to. Well, I don't know. Why is it that they're different? It's just I guess
If
they are just fundamentally two different things. I guess that's just how it comes down to it.
with clothing, there's a greater sense of practicality to it. When you buy a jacket, maybe it's not all you consider. I still think aesthetics are key here. You have to like the look of that jacket.
Right.
You have to like the fabric
Right.
first of all. But after that, you do consider, is the natural shoulders look more slouchy, better, more relaxed than padded shoulders do, structured like Edward Sexton style roped shoulders do. You consider that part of it, how it makes you look. Whereas if you try to make any sort of argument with watches, you wouldn't go anywhere because it doesn't make any sense. Wearing this watch over that watch, wearing a Rolex doesn't make you as a person look more casual than if you were wearing a Patek Philippe, for example. No one cares.
Yeah. No, that's a good point.
So, yes, that's the difference. With clothing, there's a consideration of how you look outwardly. With watches, it's stupid to think of that, so people don't think of that. People just.
I mean, I was about to say, like, as I think about it, in that Asian American group that I'm in, I wonder how many of them listen to this. By the way, I don't know if any of them are interested in listening to Style Direction, but it's more so like. It's interesting that they always talk about that, and I'm like, why don't we talk about your fucking like skinny ass pants with your caramel colored boots that you got from Amazon or whatever, right? But I mean, it makes sense, right? You're kind of more focused on the thing that you see more often. We talk about this on Squadrons, Star Wars Squadrons, where like for me, I spent a lot of my currency on the skins of my starfighters, even though I can't see it. And Spencer has bought a lot of like the knicknacks on the inside because that's what you actually see.
That's what I
when
see.
I
don't really care what the outside of my starship looks because I never see it.
That's actually, it's really funny because like, yeah, that's literally like the fundamental difference that we have here, but so that's really great for bringing it up. I think I'm just that kind of person, which is why at the beginning of this, before we recorded, we kind of agreed this isn't really a debate. It's more so because there's no way I'm going to convince Aldous that watches are useless. I don't believe that watches are useless.
Because they are useless.
Yeah, because we're not.
I agree. They are useless.
Here.
I just like them. They're pretty.
I think it's just I'm not as into them, but I'm sure that there is, because now let's move on to what we like. Like I keep saying, I have more watches than Spencer. So, like I said, I think I can speak for us. Well, not speak for us. We literally just said it. We like smaller sizes.
Smaller case sizes because smaller case sizes lend themselves better to the kind of clothes we like tailoring.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. Okay. I can definitely say I love. If I'm looking at like a dress watch, and by that I mean nowadays you can wear anything with a suit. So there's not really a dress watch, but if you think about like the classical sense of it, I definitely like tanks a lot. Maybe that's because they are more common for me to find, not just on eBay but like in flea markets, so I don't really see like round ones, even though the round ones I do like tend to be like the Rolex or Omegas that people like Arnold Wong wears. I just love that. I definitely like deco style, whatever that is, whatever that like, whether it's the font,
right,
the way that they do like the numbers, whatever, like I don't know what these terms are, but like like on the face, that there's like the tick marks of like like the minutes or whatever, like all of that. There's like a particular style from like.
Or like like you find from the 30s and 40s, like a lot of like hexagonal, or I guess just
motif stuff like in there. A lot of that, like whether it's on the face or even in like the case design around it, I like that a lot. There are pictures of this in the show. Well, my essay that I wrote. But yeah, you guys can talk.
You
talk
listeners
about that
can't see this,
but
but even just gesticulating, trying to explain numerals is hilarious. On the video.
Numerals, that's what they're called. That's right.
That's what numerals are.
I don't know, dude. I mean, I'm not a watch.
I sent you a I don't remember if I sent you a diagram or I just referred to a diagram when you asked me like what a part of a watch was. But there are helpful diagrams out there.
Yeah, what is it called? The sub face? What do we call it?
Yeah, sub face.
Sub registers.
Well, because he was asking. he was, I don't know, like he was just asking. It's like, hey, what do you call those things where it's another dial on the dial? And I googled it, and someone said subdial.
Subdial works too.
Yeah,
Sub-registers is more chronograph.
Yeah. I like those. Okay, I like those on deco watches. You know, when they have like the minute counter is not like a minute hand.
Sorry,
that's sub-seconds.
You're talking about
it's
the trench watch. Are you talking about the trench watch style where it's like the 6? Like in place of a 6, there's the seconds dial or so.
Yeah, but I've seen that on like tanks. Yeah, I've seen that on tanks.
Yeah.
I do like certain field watches. I don't like modern ones like that have like there's too many tick marks on it. I don't know, like there's just too much stuff going on. You know, I there's like a balance I think between like a very like between like a field watch style and like being too minimal. Like I don't like the Young House or the Nomos. I don't like that. That's too plain to me, you know. And I think the Marlin, even though it's plain, or like stuff like I think isn't the date just kind of plain too, you know, or some of the Grand Seikos.
It's the blue Navy Caesar watches, the Rolex Datejust. It's
yeah, you know, it's one of those things where like, you know, I mean, I don't know if I would spend that much money on it, but like if I had a style of like that, you know, that was like that, I wouldn't complain, you know. But yeah, I mean that's kind of what I like from like dress watches. Let's keep about dress watches before I talk about like my swatches. So, go ahead, Aldous. What's up?
Spencer, go first. I'll probably take a while.
Okay. Right,
well, in terms of dress watches, I also, I mean, it's like I have an affinity for like kind of, you know, mid-century watches. One, because super easy to find, and two, because, you know, the watches that I first got from my grandpa were like mid-century 50s, 60s. Watches, and I thought there was a picture of it deep down on my Instagram. I might have to go back into Facebook and find it. But I like those. I also, I mean, I don't know. In terms of dress watches, I think I have similar taste to Ethan. Again, we both still have a lot of, I guess, fashion ticks from being into vintage.
Yep.
So of course we tended to see a lot of vintage watches a lot. I think they look cool. Something I like. Is like you you see I don't know, like the kind of more, this is where I'm gonna be struggling to describe it, you know, on like late 60s and 70s watches where the case is not, it's kind of more like streamlined or maybe a little bit more like boxy,
C case,
you could say.
C case.
What was
Probably
that?
C case.
Yeah, there you go, C case. I like those. I think those look really cool. I don't know if this is like, these are dress watches. I think some like novelty kind of like atomic looking 50s like Hamilton electric watches are really cool. One thing, this is the case for dress watches and more casual watches. The hands, I would like them to be thin. The Grand Seiko that just came out, I don't like it because I think the hands are too thick, or they're like triangles and I don't think they taper in the right place, whatever. Almost all the watches I like have like very, very thin hands.
Yep, me too.
Yeah.
That's it?
Well, I mean, I don't really wear a lot of dress watches. I like the Marlin, but all the watches I bought in the last couple of years have been more casual.
Right.
Yeah,
What about you all?
Well, I wear dress watches basically exclusively, or at least, well, some of the stuff I have might not have been considered dress watches back in the day, kind of like the Vulcan Cricket, which probably was more sporty, but now would be considered a dress watch just based on general dimensions. I like dress. My ideal watch would be a dress watch. It fundamentally agrees with tailoring more, I think, and also they tend to be less expensive, going back to money again. It's not that I hate sports watches, and that sports watches are really hyped up now. Even Elgin divers from the 60s go for like $500-600, whereas an equivalent Elgin dress watch from the period would be like $100, and it would be pretty good. Should I just describe, I guess, like if I had to build the bear my perfect watch?
Go ahead.
I'd say my sweet spot for case size, I think, is about 30 to 34 millimeters, which would line up most of what was the standard in the 50s. So let's split the difference, say 32 millimeter case. Strap width for that would probably, logical would be 16 millimeter, maybe 18 would work. 16 or 18 millimeter strap width. Stainless steel case, and that's my main gripe with American watches, the tanks that you find on eBay and are good values for money, but they all have plated gold cases, either rolled gold rolled gold or gold filled. Those tend to wear off and don't really like that. So steel case that resists corrosion and doesn't wear down over time. Date complications are very useful. If anything, I check my watches more for the date than I do for the actual time, which you can easily get every time you pull your phone out. Phone out will be date 2, but usually I check it more for the date. So I would like a date complication. Date windows are a bit common, and I personally enjoy more 40s, 50s sort of aesthetic. So date complication in the 40s and 50s, the date window isn't as evocative of the period, although it did exist. So I would go for pointed date complication, date. I have a Benrus which has that. It's a pointed date with a day window as well. So I've said a lot of things, but in summary, 32mm steel cased watch, automatic. I'll throw it in there with a pointed day and date complication. That would be my ideal watch if I could design one, I think. And under 10mm thick, maybe about 7 if I could. 6-7mm thick.
Yeah,
that would fit nicely underneath cuffs and all that.
Yeah,
that's
there you
what
go.
I have.
That seems like a.
I could continue ranting on, but we're already over time.
We need to get a fan artist. We don't have any of those. We need to get a fan artist to draw that watch.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, if you're listening,
calling out for our first piece of fan art.
But before we get to the very last part of it, because I want to ask how you guys wear your watches with like your outfits and everything.
Well, do you want to talk about casual watches really quick?
Yeah,
I feel like.
Yeah, I will say that. Yeah, that's what I was saying. We're gonna get there after I talk about my swatches or what I like. I mean, I don't think I like swatches inherently. Like I'm not like a fanboy for that. They're the easiest way for me to find like a novelty watch, and I have looked up like vintage novelty watches before. Unfortunately, some of them might be for like children. Sometimes
they would have been for
just
children.
Really too small.
They wouldn't. They wouldn't have been marketed to adults.
Or maybe they're too digital. You know, like or they're kind of thick. Like like there are some like Chuck E. Cheese watches I think are kind of funny, but like they're literally like they're like thick because they're like a fucking like I don't know like an engagement ring case because they like pop out like it's like fucking huge on your fucking wrist, you know. So I don't like that. I mean, I like the idea of it, but you know, it's kind of hard to find like a good novelty watch, which is why I occasionally look at vintage swatches. You know, the art is like very similar to what I paint. Go ahead.
One thing about vintage novelty watches though that Ethan didn't touch upon is because they were marketed primarily to children, they were also pretty shoddily built as well.
Yeah.
The cheapest movements possible. Pin leather escapements. For the most part, especially the old Mickey Mouse watches that were made by Ingersoll. Pin leather escapements. Nickel cases or just badly plated cases that are now probably dead. Shot through by this point.
Yep. I did get a watch, vintage like 40s watch that had Donald Duck on it. Stopped working, and the guy was like, "This is shitty, man." And I was like, "Okay, well." They weren't meant to last, and it's impossible to find one that works well as a watch these days. Yeah, and I'm kind of very sad that modern novelty watches don't have the same kind of good taste as novelty watches had back in those days. It's just there's just something sad about like back then, right? It was just it was made shitty, but like it still looked like like a vintage like round face like 30s watch. It just had fucking Mickey Mouse on it. But nowadays, a Mickey Mouse watch is fucking like thick as hell. It's got fucking G-Shock, or it's just Mickey
ugly. Is thick as hell. That's the quote for the pod. This episode.
There's a quote of the day.
I don't know if it's still there, but for a while, Joyride had like a 70s novelty watch where it was like one of the Mickey Mouse watches where his hands are like pointing at the time. But it was former Vice President Spiro Agnew.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was working. I don't think it was working, which is why I probably didn't buy it. But I always kind of was like, I could fix this.
Spiro Agnew watch.
Yeah, because I do have a what's it called, a Loris, which is like a 90s watch, quartz, whatever. Yep. But it's a goofy watch and it runs backwards. Literally, it runs backwards. Like the numbers go in the opposite direction in the hands, So if someone were to
goofy.
ask me, yeah, it's goofy. It's fun. I found it at the flea market. It was cheap, so I was like, you know what? Why not? Because it was like at a time, or it's like a year ago. I'm fine with adding that to my outfits because my wardrobe hasn't really changed that much. Everything has stabilized, like I said before. I have like the Timex Snoopy watch that lights up in the dark. That's got it's red. It's got the NATO strap, which I think about like replacing with an actual cool NATO strap, but it's like whatever. And probably I do have a swatch that looks pretty not decoy, but look very classic. It just happens to be made of plastic with a faux leather watch band. I'm per the previous owner added on. Got that for like $10 on eBay, which is fun. But my absolute favorite watch, which I'm glad my small wrists can take, is a Doraemon watch that I got at the Haneda airport in Tokyo right before I left. And I was like, I'm trying to use up all the cash I took out, right? Because I'm like, when I bring this back to US, it's useless, right? So I bought a bunch of like magazines. On my way out, I saw they had like a toy watch or like a children's watch, and I'm like, it looks small enough for me to wear. Like it's small but big enough, and I bought it. And it was like $10 or whatever, how much it was, and it's like light blue and white. It's got Doraemon all over it. It's fucking great. It's got like red hands, it's cool.
Oh, I got it red-handed.
Yeah. And that has been like my favorite like watch to wear because it is literally so subversive, and it's aesthetically cool, but it also has a fun story behind it that lets me, as we talked about before, it'd be cool to find like a if you found like a vintage watch in the wild, it's supposed to buy it on eBay. Like we said, like with Spencer, like when we talked about how we buy things, when you're at a flea market or at a curated store, it adds more to that experience than just like, okay, I went to a watch store to buy a watch.
Yeah.
Good job.
Just the find,
Yeah,
finding
exactly.
Thrill of the hunt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about novelty watches?
Yeah, go ahead.
I used to be more into swatches. I've never owned one, but I think around the same time, I don't know, maybe after you got your first one, or when I would look at like pictures of like Michael Hill or whatever, I'd be like, oh, I want a swatch. Right now, I don't think a swatch really would go with my wardrobe, so I haven't thought about buying one in a long time. But as I said before, I still kind of want like a Spiro Agnew watch or something that's a little bit more, I don't know.
Oh, I think a 70s novelty would work better with your style than like a modern novelty one.
Exactly. But I still think, I can appreciate them from a distance, I guess. I still think the clear ones, that's the real meme one is the clear ones, but I think they look cool. There's a lot of really fun like art style. I search them every once in a while on eBay just to see. And I always find some good ones, but I don't think I'm going to buy a novelty watch anytime soon.
Yeah. What about you, Aldous? I know, if you're talking about like the marvel of engineering, I feel like these novelty watches don't have the movement that you require or the same amount of mechanical stuff.
Well, movement I require implies that I have a snooziness saying that I need my movement to be this polished in order to buy it. No, that's not. But you're right about the movement being an issue. Aesthetically, novelty watches aren't really me, but beyond that, I find it very difficult to reconcile the fact that these watches weren't made to survive. So if I find a vintage one, it probably will not run on time and will never run on time again. So for that reason, and also just because the aesthetics don't really agree with me, I never really looked into novelty watches or had much of an interest in them. Slightly related though, I have noodled around with the idea of getting company branded watches though. Do you know? Do you know what I'm talking? Probably not.
I've seen.
Yeah.
I mean,
the
it's
Rolex
like
Domino's one.
Yeah. That's a famous one. So the Rolex Domino's one. What that is, it's a Rolex Air King, and the Air King was the entry-level model of Rolex for a very long time. Companies would buy these in lots, and they would stamp their logo on the dial, and they'd give them out to exemplary employees as gifts, I guess. All sorts of companies did it. Hamilton, all the American companies did it for sure, and Rolex allowed it with their Air King. So yeah, Rolex X Domino's collab is pretty funny, and that's kind of cool.
Gotta get that drop.
Yeah, got that Domino's drip.
Was the Rolex Supreme collab? Was that like an official
No,
thing?
that wasn't
was
official.
That a similar thing where they bought them and then modified.
That was
them?
modified. Rolex is too snussy to do collaborations anymore.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't.
Interesting.
I'm not going off on this tangent because it's going to be very long. But Rolex has lost its way as a company, in my opinion. They've forgotten they've forgotten the character on which they built their fame and fortune on.
They're the Brooks Brothers of watches.
They're the Brooks Brothers of watches. So the sack suit, sack suit makers who don't make sack suits anymore. Yeah, that sort of thing. The Supreme collab it's not official Rolex. But in addition to Domino's, Pan Am had Air King stamps. With
there you go.
The Pan Am logo on there. And I don't know about other Rolexes, but cheaper price point Elgin in the 50s had a rather interesting collab. They deliberately cased watches in stainless steel for US steel, and they'd have US steel stamped on the dial. With unique steel cases that were fitted to models that you would never find in stainless steel otherwise. It's just because it was US steel watches.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. That's they're made that way. So yeah, Elgin Shockmasters US steel versions. So does that count as novelty-ish? It's
sure. I
so.
mean, it's novelty to you. That makes sense. So
novelty adjacent.
The last thing. The last thing I really quickly want to touch on is, so how do you guys wear your watches? You know, what goes through your mind when you're picking the watch that you're going to wear for that day? If you are, I mean, in my case, if you are even going to wear a watch, because I know you guys wear a watch every day. I don't.
Like I said, I have one watch, so it's very easy to make that decision.
And you wear it all the time, like for sure.
I do wear it, even if I'm not leaving the house. I just wear it at home.
Yeah, so it literally doesn't. I mean, like, it doesn't matter if you're wearing a tailoring outfit or a thing. Like you'll wear it regardless.
Yeah, if I had more watches, I mean, I'm sure that I would have a thought process, but I've literally never had more than one working watch at a time. So I have never run into this situation where I'm like, oh, which watch am I gonna wear today?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that, you know, when watches are the last thing I put on before I leave if I'm gonna wear one, right? And so it's like my last, you know, even after the hat, and we've talked about hats in the last pod where, if it's a if you're gonna wear an Ivy outfit, are you gonna subvert it with like a beanie, or you're gonna take a cap with it, you're gonna wear a beret, like, you know, how do you do that? So like even after that, then it takes it a step further with, okay, now what watch is it gonna be? And I thankfully, you know, now that I've gotten kind of a little bit more into it, I've developed a very small and very inconsistent watch collection. You know, like if I wanted to lean into like the tailored vibes, I would wear my my Gruen dress watch, or if I'm gonna do tailoring with an edge, but still be clean, you know, you wear the DeVille. Or you take it a step further, you know, you do the goofy watch, right? With because that one's like, you know, it's black leather. It's like a silver face case, whatever you want to call it. It just has goofy on it. So like, you know, from afar it looks like a classic, you know, silver black leather watch. But you know, when you get closer, it's different. But then more often than not, I just wear like my Doraemon watch or my white swatch, because those are kind of more practical in the sense of like if anything happens to it, it's fine. You know, like it's plastic.
Yeah.
And those kind of, more often than not, those kind of play into the vibes. You know, if I'm going to do something silly, I do the Doraemon. If it's going to be more straightforward, but a little bit irreverent, then I'll do the white swatch, because the white one is just white. It's just a plastic white swatch. So it's weird, but it's not like, whoa, you're wearing a fucking thing with Goofy on it, you know? So,
which people say to you all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I've worn my Goofy watch with the dinner jackets. I've also worn my gold with my dinner jackets. I've worn my Doraemon watch with my Ascot Chang suit. I've worn my Gruen with like a field shirt and jeans. It's really just kind of all over the place, but it just kind of depends on the mood, you know? So I can't really, I don't really have much to say about it other than whatever calls out to me the day of, I just wear it, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. If I had more watches, I think that would be also be my process. Like, I would probably have... I mean, I don't know how many watches I'm ever going to have at once. I don't think I'm ever going to have more than maybe 2 or 3. but it would probably be like how I choose a hat, or how I choose all my accessories is I just put them on until I figure out which one I like with it.
Mm-hmm. Aldous, what do you have quickly before we?
Yeah, well, I am a person with more
Quickly!
watches, and
yeah, how do you wear it?
And yeah, as you've speculated, that's pretty much accurate. I don't really have much rhyme or reason for it, as we discussed earlier. I don't really think too much about my watch, about how watches harmonize my outfit, because they really don't. You may not ever see them really. So I'll just wear a watch for like a week or so, and eventually I'll get a bit tired of it, and I'll just go to the box and just grab another one and put that one on, really. Most of my watches are dress watches, so there's no real need to consider sport versus casual when picking them up. And I kind of like the subversive nature too of if you have like a mil-surf outfit but you have a dress watch on. It's I don't know, I kind of like that. There's a historical precedent to that as well, because yeah, you would see it. Like you see guys in Vietnam with their Omegas on, Omega Seamasters, that they got it for their graduation, and they're just wearing because that's the watch they have, not because they thought about whether GMT would be better or Submariner would be better. No, just the watch my dad gave me, and I'm wearing it in the field with my M65.
In the field, that's cool. Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm always gonna be the odd guy. Again, I try and. The way I sound must be crazy. It's like, yeah, Ethan's slouchy, but wait a minute, he has to think about what watch. Well, I don't think hard about which watch, but it's kind of like, it's been so internalized that these micro decisions happen within a split second. You know what I mean? I'm sure there are some guys out there who like carefully calculate, okay, that's my suit watch, that's my sport coat watch. But for me, maybe I do default to certain watches, and I don't want to admit it or something. I don't know. Not really a watch guy. I can't really verbalize these thoughts very well.
Well, I mean, it's like you default to your white watch in the same way that you default to your white socks,
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I guess that's kind of makes sense a little bit, and I think this probably won't be the last episode on watches we ever have. I'm sure, we'll revisit this in a year or whatever, This is kind of the first time we've officially kind of acknowledged watches on the pod stream.
Until then, you would, if you only listened to this podcast, you wouldn't even know watches existed.
We've officially canonized watches today. This was the day.
Yeah. But if you guys want to read more about what I think about watches, you guys can read my essay on Speed Expressa. The link is in the description of the episode. And of course, pictures of what we discuss here will be in there as well. I think that's kind of it. Aldous, do you have any final plug that you want to give us? Your Instagram? Anything you want to check? Anything you want them to check out?
Well, my Instagram's not much to look at.
You're working on a new movie. What projects are you here to promote?
God, I don't have a wizard response to that one. Indecision. Anyway, my Instagram, which isn't much to look at, is just my name, Aldous Not Choi. Interesting stuff I've watched. Let's be really basic bitch here and just say the Queen.
Ami Tora, bring it back to the original plug.
Ami Tora's great. No, I don't know. The Queen's Gambit's a good show on Netflix. What the fuck, right?
Okay. There we go.
And Bulova Watch makes an appearance in that show.
Oh yeah.
She does.
And also, I was watching that when they showed a case back. That is actually a Bulova case back. That was very pleasing to me because of the codes and numbers on that. It was a ladies Bulova. It might have been a bit anachronistic. It might have been a bit earlier though. It seemed more like a 50s watch than a 60s one, but it's like a mid 50s thing. Anyway, I'm going off on a tangent here.
Well, cool. Thank you for joining us, Aldous. Again, if you guys want to talk to Aldous directly, Aldous is a student, like some of the other people in here, so he's not on all the time.
If you want to have the opportunity to speak to him directly,
yes,
not the guarantee.
If you want the opportunity for me to rant at you directly, you can.
There you go. Yeah. As Kiyoshi and the rest of us know, you guys can subscribe to our Patreon, patreon.com/downdirection. We've had a lot of people, pay better than zero because we've never had some before.
Better than zero.
And it's been great, and we've led to the launch of this Discord, which we are currently in. It's a lot of fun. And if you guys like this, you like us, you like Aldous, you want to talk to us more often, join it, contribute to the podcast. It really does go a long way. So maybe we can have some more interviews like this. This is our first interview in a long time, compared to Young Chomsky. But it's been a lot of it's been really great, and I'm kind of happy that we were able to make this work out. You know, we told Aldous about this like half a year ago. We were like, hey, we're gonna get you on about watches. It's gonna be out before the end of the year. No idea exactly when, but it'll happen.
Oh, it came out before the end of the year.
Look at that, it did.
Look at that. Big ups to our Sadcast fanatics, Seth Peterson, Eric Hall, Austin Malat, Shane Curry, Philip Regard, and Audrey Jessica for being our top tier patrons of our Patreon. I did it right, so fuck off.
You did it.
Follow us on our twitch.tv/downdirection, because we stream on Wednesdays and Saturdays. We'll probably discuss this the Saturday after this comes out, so get ready to come back for that one. And yeah, I'm Ethan M. Wong.
I'm Spencer DSO. That's my Instagram handle.
Those are our Instagrams, and thank you to MJ and Matt for producing the podcast. Don't get on mic, please. Aldous, I'm gonna have you go back to your little corner now.
And you can't leave.
You can't leave.
You live here now.
Just like Dan Harmon. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.